Assalamu alaikum everyone, hope you're well. Mr. Ali here with his weekly community wellbeing show. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're keeping safe and warm. Yes, got it. Yeah. I hope you're keeping well. I hope you're keeping safe and warm. It's been a, should we say, an Arctic kind of week. So I was coaching on Sunday, and halfway through my coaching session, it started snowing it down. It was -4 degrees. So I was there playing football on a Sunday afternoon with a bunch of 12 and 13 years old. Plenty of fun to be had. But hope all is well with this new variant that's now been detected from South Africa. The whole world is on red alert in terms of what's going on. So we are now asked to sanitize, keep a safe distance, wear a safe mask as well. So please, those regional social distancing rules are now in place as well, especially when you are out in public. If you are living or in contact with vulnerable or shielding people, then please do take the necessary precaution that you were. This is a more virulent strain, and at the moment we don't know what the long-term effects are or how effective it's going to be with the COVID vaccine. But each country is now certainly locking its borders and making the travel restrictions a lot more stringent as well. So please do look at the government advice and the website for the latest travel guidance for each country. And I know for those people that are traveling inwards into the UK mainland, you now have to do a PCR test at day 2, and you have to isolate until you get that negative result as well. So please continue to do that. But the reason why we have been waiting for this show and long awaited is because it was something that I'm very keen to address, certainly from a Asian perspective, certainly from an Islamic perspective, because I do feel as though that we are slightly almost on the platform whilst the train is going past. You'll understand my analogy over the course of the hour when we start discussing what was discussed, who was there, and how we are trying to implement this both on an international, national, regional, but also on a personal level as well. So if we all, start making small changes to our lifestyle, then, what's the old saying? The parts make all the sum, or some of the all the parts, something along those sort of lines. So, but today, I wanted to be there in Glasgow about a month ago in November. I think it was in November. I really wanted to be there to really get a sense of what was being discussed, the agenda. And just for those of you that aren't familiar, this is a United Nations global initiative. It is called the Conference of the Parties, and it was number 26. So already we've had 26 already that's taken place. And this particular one has gone mainstream now. So we've heard of Miss Sundberg, the young girl activist who a couple of years ago brought it onto the mainstream agenda by her sort of calling out some of the world leaders and traveling by boat to, I think at that time it was the United States of America, if I remember right, and she had some choice words for the then President Mr. Trump and other world leaders as well. It wasn't just America as well, who are still ultimately responsible for about a quarter of all the world's pollution. But we will be discussing this, and now from maybe 5 to 10 years ago, it being a very fringe kind of a conference, and almost we were sort of putting those eco warriors onto these sort of hippie type. It is now mainstream. Every politician, every ethical organization is now talking about their carbon footprint, about the environment as well, and sustainability. So that's what we are going to be discussing, but also with the theme of how we as Muslim, how we as Asians need to be part of that conversation rather than just being on the sidelines as well. So today we have Brother Kamran Shahzad, who is part of the Bahu Trust, and He's based over in Postal Hills, but this particular organization is worldwide, and they were one of the affiliate partners of the COP, and we'll get a lot more information from Kamran. So, first of all, a warm, humble welcome to the studios of Radio Aapki Awaz. I hope you're well. You were one of the privileged people that I know that had gone to COP26. So first maybe sort of give a bit of an introduction to yourself, and maybe even Bahu Trust if you wish to, and tell us, how did you manage to get there as well? I'm very intrigued, and tell us about the association between COP and the Bahu Trust.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, wa alaikum assalam. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your show, Mr. Ali. I know we mean to
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally managed to get here, and thank you. Grateful to you for bringing this topic up, especially around COP, climate change, environmental issues. I'm from the Bahu Trust, the Sultan Bahu Masjid, as some people know. It's a mosque based in Birmingham, established in 1983. Set up on the ethos and values of Hazrat Sultan Bahu, Rahmatullah alayhi, who's a 16th century Sufi saint. And within the UK now we have 22 mosques. And over the course of 35 years, we also now started to be involved in social justice issues.
Absolutely.
And I know you and your other friends who are activists on the streets, we believe, as we've grown up in our area, that the masjid has to play a role, just like everybody else. The masjid isn't just about praying salah. There's more to it. We have a role. And social justice is one of those roles, because we can ask people to change their behavior. We can ask people to do things differently. But there's only so much that they can do. There's issues in our community that needs the council to intervene. It needs the government to intervene, and the global heads of states to intervene. So it's important. So hence now the question you ask about COP, why are we involved in COP?
Yeah.
What's the masjid from Bolsonaro doing, being involved in the Conference of Parties of the United Nations framework for the Convention on Climate Change? Well, for the past 5-6 years, the Bahu Trust has been working on environmental issues. And that's not, we're not talking just about cleanups and, cycling.
Yeah.
There's issues around food, access to good quality food, air pollution. Like in Birmingham, our children's lives are cut by 6 months because of the amount of air pollution.
Yeah.
There's issues of access to good, sustainable public transport. There's no point us telling people, you must walk to the masjid, or you must, if there's not. So what we do is we're involved in campaigning and advocacy, where we involved around whether it's the local government, whether it's government, and the UN. So we have accreditation. We first received our accreditation with the United Nations Environment Programme 3 years ago. So we've been involved in various different environmental initiatives, and we're involved in global policies, and it allows a masjid to be involved. And now recently in COP, and where the UNFCCC is different to UNEP. UNEP is all environmental issues. The UNFCCC or COP26 is focused purely on climate change.
Sure. Okay.
And the fact that it's called COP26 means they've been talking about this for 26 years. So it's not a new phenomenon. They knew a quarter of a century ago, even way before that. We're talking about a full century ago. So there's a lot more work to be done.
And I remember, Kamran, when I was in school, we used to talk about the fossil fuels and how damaging it is to the environment, both in terms of used to be the ozone layer. That was the big thing about, depleting the ozone layer, and the harmful rays coming in, with the waters rising and the melting of the ice caps, and then obviously methane and all sorts. And we were told at that time we only had about 25, 30, maybe 40 years tops of fossil fuels left. We're talking about whether it's coal or oil. And now, still, at the moment, we're so heavily dependent and reliant on these, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide emittents, i.e. these fossil fuels. I don't think we've done much really over the last 25, 26 years. I think there was a real sense of urgency this COP, wasn't there? People were really, staying that extra hour in the meeting, spending sleepless nights, banging heads together in a polite way to make sure there was a international agreement where we can, they were talk about, was it 2 degrees that they were saying over the next, by 2050, if nothing happens, the global temperature will increase by 2 degrees. Am I right in saying?
Yeah, 100%. There's two points I want to address there. Number one, people quite often think, oh, 1.5, 2 degrees, that's a tiny amount.
Minuscule.
Rather than going into the science of it, let me put it this way. Now, our average body temperature is around 37.5.
Yeah.
What happens to us if our body temperature goes up by 1 degree?
Feverish.
We get bukhar.
Yeah.
If it goes any higher than that, all sorts of things start happening to our body.
Yeah.
So put it that way, the Earth is going through a bukhar phase at the moment. Yeah, going through a fever phase, and we have to do everything possible to bring that down. But you mentioned the ozone layer. When we had issues with the ozone layer, we sorted that out because every agreement that was made by all the countries came with enforcement powers. So which means every country had to do something about it, otherwise they would have faced sanctions. Now what's happening is, like in COP21, which was in Paris, we came to an agreement, but it was all based on the goodwill of every country to reduce their fossil fuel. And unfortunately, goodwill doesn't get us anywhere.
No. And you know what? I don't think many of the metrics and the objectives that had been agreed have been delivered. And there's a lot of, also, these green policies take a lot of money as well. Countries, especially the developed countries who've had their revolution, now they're going through the green revolution, are expected to contribute more, and rightly so. Unfortunately, I think only a small percentage of the total pledged has been donated, and there were a lot of people sort of pointing fingers that you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and it was nice to actually see that this COP26 in Glasgow was quite monumental. People were serious, people stayed behind, and in the end there was a sort of, a statement that was published. People had sort of signed up to it, even though it was watered down right at the end. But in essence, the spirit of what they were trying to achieve was there. And you had big countries like, United States previously under Trump. He was a bit, anti-environment, or didn't quite believe in what was happening with global warming and climate change. But now with a new change of presidency, certainly I think the West are all on one page. There are some other countries, China and Russia and India, who are still sort of, not quite there. And I think there needs to be, a carrot and a stick approach to the whole thing. But I think it was really focused on mind, this COP did. And there was something almost like saying, if we don't get this agreement now, then it'll be too late. Whatever will happen, we'll be playing catch up, and we won't. The changes are irreversible, weren't they? That's what.
I agree and disagree with you, and I can understand why you've made the point that there seemed to be lots going on and everyone was serious. One thing for sure that COP26 has done is the era for climate denial is over.
Yes.
Yeah. If you deny the science now, you're in the minority. Because every country has acknowledged that climate change is an issue. It's happening around us.
Yeah.
What I don't believe is happening is the countries who are causing the most damage are taking it as serious. The Americans are very good at soft power and diplomacy. They make it sound like, unfortunately, it came across that India and China are to blame.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think the Americans have a large role to play. The British, all the colonial powers who have all developed, have all the power to make the changes, but we don't want to give that up. We've also taken away fossil fuel and energy and resources from other countries, while the developing countries have always been held back because they've been held back and they've not been able to. And so now, what was agreed previously 5 years ago, one, that they would do everything to limit emissions to keep to 1.5, which they haven't done. It was agreed that they would commit to net zero targets. In fairness to the UK was the first government to do that.
Yeah.
By 2050, but as Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister for Barbados, she gave a very passionate speech.
Yes,
and she said, look, for you guys 2050, 2060 is fine. For us 2030 is a death sentence, because our islands will just drown, will get flooded. So what are you doing? And then there was also commitments that whilst all these countries have benefited heavily, they need to be paying reparation fees for loss and damage that has been caused to other countries because of our emissions. So it was agreed that all the powers would give $100 billion a year. Like, if you think most of your audience, I'm assuming, are from Pakistan. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have the Himalayas, we have the glaciers. Now the glaciers are melting, but Pakistan hasn't done anything to contribute to climate change. But yeah, all the people who are losing out on water or being flooded, they're being displaced. Who's paying for that? That's been put on a poor government, and that has to come from others who are. So there was lots of hype, and unfortunately, now what was really sad to see at COP. I mean, outside we had the activists, like in the hundreds of thousands, who were all saying the right things, but they didn't have access inside. Inside, you had all the suited, booted people, and then you had more fossil fuel delegates
Lobbying.
I mean, it was the size of a whole country who had more power and more influence. We had Jeff Bezos, the billionaire, the richest man in the world, using that platform to say, hey, I'm going to look after the earth. He's the father of modern consumerism. And he's using that platform to give it. And I think, if I recall, he said something like, oh, when I went up in my rocket, I saw the fragility of earth. So I think COP has just kicked the can down the road, and they've not seen the governments have not seen the seriousness of making decisions that affect other people's lives.
Do you think it's become a sexy topic now? Previously, it was, for the lunatic fringes to be talking about the environment, and I talked about it, so the sort of being owned and talked within the hippie, but he has gone into mainstream. But it's almost now gone a bit too far. It's almost like everyone is talking about the environment, but without actually implementing it, without living it, and really believing in it. Is that what you sense? I mean, when you had some interactions with certainly the powers to be and the people with real influence and being able to make the necessary changes?
That's a really good point you made, and partly yes. I think there's a lot more awareness.
Yeah.
I think just like with anything else, it's brought out lots of virtue signaling where people want to be seen, to be cool and be in the topic, and you've got people talking or holding events and things, and they're not really saying the right things.
Yeah.
So we are seeing that, but equally we're seeing lots of people actually. It's getting them to think, okay, what is my role? What can I do? I need to play my... And we'll talk about the role of mosques and Muslims later on, and how we... But I am seeing that slowly, but equally I'm seeing the other side too.
And you know what? If I was a prime minister of one of the third world countries in Africa or in South America or even in Southeast Asia, and I've got, probably 70-80% of my population on the breadline, they aren't able to afford the next meal. They're worried about where they're going to get the food from. They live on less than a pound a day, and at the same time, I'm now being pressured by the first world countries and the United Nations to sign up to these agreements, which I know may stunt my GDP, my economic growth. That's going to divert some of my resources and my money into stuff that the first world countries have already gone through. So they've had their first revolution, and I'm still going through it. I'm not at that stage. Where the incentive for their prime minister or any government to say, look, yeah, we'll sign up to it, knowing that you're putting more people at risk of not having access to coal, to wood, And unless I see the governments from the the established countries investing on the grassroots, for me, it doesn't quite sense and make up. And likewise, if you ask the residents, even if you ask the residents here within Birmingham and within the UK, I'm talking about the normal sort of common man who's going out and working to put food on the table. Even we've got a safety net of our benefit system. We'll be thinking, I'm not going to do anything that's going to cost me money or it's going to impact on my overall disposable income or anything like that.
Yeah.
And imagine, if we're saying that and having that sort of real balance. Imagine someone who's living in those countries I just mentioned. Last thing on their mind is thinking about the environment and not sort of sustainable forest and sort of replanting and looking after the environment. Does it quite square up, does it? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you made some really good points and you've kind of given a good analysis.
Yeah.
If I was, just say a village in Pakistan. Yeah, let's bring a small village. Now, children in that village will know the significance of that well.
Yes.
And they will protect it because they understand.
Yeah.
So most people in villages or in these places understand the value of environment. They will understand the value of trees. They will understand the value of livestock.
Yeah.
And as they grow older and they need to put food on their plate, yes, they need to tap into that. But they also understand the value of sharing that. Here, it's different. We have everything and we're still greedy. Look, not long ago, we thought we're not going to be able to wipe our bottoms. And what happened?
Yeah, that's right. Well said.
Yeah, and we didn't leave toilet paper. We had a napkin.
And literally, at the same time, I mean, I can only speak for myself. We knew this was going to be a temporary.
Yeah.
No one thought this was going to go on in terms of shortages of food and these essential items. That maybe a month, maybe 2 months, but eventually we'll go back to normal. But even then, people were loading their cars, their vans, their trucks, whatever it was, with stuff like you said, toilet paper, baked beans, whatever it was, because I don't know, it was all about me. As long as I'm okay, forget the rest. It wasn't about I'll take normally I take 1 pack of toilet roll, I'll take 2.
Yeah.
I'll sort of cover but people were literally fighting over it, and it's all about.
So we see every natural resource we have on this earth, whether it's trees or whether it's fossil fuels.
Yeah.
It's good for us.
Yeah.
We use it. Our problem as a global nation or Western nation, is we do too much of something. What we don't do is what we take with one hand, we don't put it back with the other.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about GDP, you mentioned earlier, that shouldn't be the only success criteria. We measure everything with money.
Well said.
So in a household, every sibling has to have a car.
Yeah.
We grew up, each sibling didn't have a car. Dad had a car, that was it.
That's it, yeah,
He'd take us everywhere. We got on public transport.
Walk it, yeah.
We walk it, and we were happy doing that. Mum would send us to do the soda, the shopping once a week. We'd carry everything, and then we'd be supporting the local economy because everyone had a business. There was a circular economy in a sense. So, how we take from this planet and give back. And then the poorer countries you mentioned, most of these poorer countries already have net zero because they're not using as much. Now this is what they're demanding, that we want prosperity. You now need to support us. If we need energy, we don't need to be cutting down trees. Or even if we do, our trees are enough for us to grow. You stop cutting down our trees for your like halal industry here. I think I'm not going to figure, but it's something like 20 or 30% of Amazon forest, which is being cut down, is to cater for the halal meat industry.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, it's don't quote me fully, but it was a figure in that, and I will. So we shouldn't be cutting down their trees. The Amazon is there for a reason. That's the lungs of this. So how can we provide solar paneling, wind energy, hydro energy in a way that's sustainable? And back to how do we reduce our consumption? Simplicity always, just take a step back. The amount of food every day globally we waste 1/3 of all food produced. So it just shows how much of a
Yeah, absolutely. We've got brother Ayub here, and he works for one of those big five supermarkets. So please do share your memories and your recollections from last year in terms of how people were panic buying, what sort of things were they buying, and what was the reason, what were the trigger factors. For me, if I was panicking, the last thing I would be fighting over or trying to get floor to ceiling full of stock would be toilet roll. It would be items I would think, maybe non-perishable food, the ones that will last. But, I don't know, but please do share with us as well. And also talk about maybe the amount of food. You probably see it firsthand, Brother Ayub, the amount of waste your supermarket has, and what do they do with it? And most of it, probably just goes to those big those sort of what they called, the waste sort of lands, wasteland, and just throw it away, unfortunately. And that's for me, it's just, unjustifiable, really. But hey ho, it is what it is. But the other thing I was going to say was, you mentioned about how it is the consumerism in the first world that is responsible for probably a good majority of the resources that we are depleting. However, if you look at the PR, and I was looking at the headlines and the news, but the narrative was that it is India, it is China, Russia, it's everyone but Europe and America are responsible for this, and they're not towing the line, they're not there, they're not playing their part. So it's almost like the what we were hearing on the media is almost like these guys are the enemies of the environment.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, the British are still opening coal mines. The Americans are still starting other pipelines. So it's a media game.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you look at some of the activists, and this is why it's important for us to continue
Yeah.
pushing for them to do that. And you have different experts in different things to keep. But it starts on different levels. It has to be done on an individual level. It has to be on a communal level. It has to be on a government level. We all have a role to play, and consumer power is very important.
Yeah.
You know.
And the other thing that I want to talk about is that individual responsibility that we have. And, we can, switch off lights, we can switch off our individual, PowerPoints that aren't being used, and don't leave things on standby that we all should be doing. And I think it's just, making a stand yourself first and be a role model, to be a catalyst for change before you start, getting other members of your family to start, adhering and complying and playing their role. But how far does that go? So, how far would you go as well? Because we've had the latest group who have sort of used the term positive disruption, called Insulate Britain, who have, if you haven't heard of them, what they are saying is they want the UK government to sign up to an agreement whereby they will insulate every house in Britain so we don't lose any of the heat, and so we only use an hour of our central heating because the house is so well insulated that all the heat will be in there. And I've been to some houses where the double glazing, the roof things, it's absolutely poor, and doesn't matter how long you leave the heating on for. It's almost as though you're standing outside. So you could see the power of the argument, but it's how they're going about sharing that, how they go about educating, and how far they're going to disrupt it in order to make that change happen by the government. And they've got their own unique way, and I'm sure you've seen the disruption. And I think, I wouldn't say I agree with it, because what they're doing is they're affecting the most common man and woman who are going about their daily lives, whether it's work, school run, hospital appointment, or whatever it may be, maybe even a enjoyable day out, and they are hurting them. And I think they may be losing some goodwill towards their messaging or towards their cause. Whereas I think that what they ought to do is go to the lawns of the House of Parliament, outside the gates where the ministers are there, and make their lives difficult, who have got the keys to the power and keys to making it change. I don't know, what are your thoughts about how they're going about and their cause as well?
Okay, I'm probably gonna suffer the wrath of your listeners here. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. Yeah, so I don't have the guts to do what they're doing.
I agree with that
Yeah?
as well. I agree.
And the reason why I understand and I empathize with them, in a sense, and I completely understand that it does cause disruption, but disruption sometimes is good for us. Yeah, we may not always see. Like if we need heart surgery, there's disruption in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to have an operation. Our body has to be cut up. We're then out of out of action for a few months in order to make us better. That's the simple analogy I'll give. Same with we have roadworks going on. There's disruption, and in this case, what Insulate Britain are saying is that we've tried the petitions, we've tried the protests, we've tried writing to our MPs. And I'm sure everybody here agrees with me that the political discourse over the last few years has been so toxic that people feel that politics doesn't listen to them. So in COP, one of the big message that was coming out from all the activists is we want system change, not climate change. So what the likes of Insulate Britain and Extinction Rebellion have done, have gone out their way to cause civil disobedience.
That's right.
That we're going to cause some short-term nuisance, that otherwise nobody's going to pick this up in the media and nobody's going to listen to us. But why are we doing this? We're not doing it because we're benefiting, we're doing it for the nation, in a sense. That if they're calling for retrofitting and for insulating, who does that benefit? That benefits the poor people who can't afford energy. And we talk about energy poverty.
Yeah.
These people, we won't have energy poverty. Okay. High emissions, which is causing climate change. You're reducing that drastically. So they're calling for positive things. Now it's up to everybody else to decide whether that's working or not. But issues like the voting rights and other things have come about from civil disobedience and disruption in the past.
Well said. And in a short space of time, I don't know how long they've been going, but certainly in the last, I would say 3 to 4 months, everyone has heard of Insulate Britain. We know who they are. We know what they're trying to achieve. We know what disruption they've caused, albeit it's been mostly around the M25. However, when I was looking at some of the individuals who make up Insulate Britain and are taking to the roads, it seems as though these are retirees over the age of 60, look like middle class people who obviously, have got a lot of time on their hands, and now they're sort of obviously thinking about the environment. And I don't think for one moment that the recent cases whereby about 4 or 5 people have had custodial sentences up to 3, 4, 5, 6 months as well. They were expecting that. I think that's been a real shock to the system as well. So the question is, how far do you take it? That's one particular way. I'm just going to read out some of the comments now by some of the...
Sorry, before you read, just quickly, Extinction Rebellion it was partly because of them that the government pushed net zero in Parliament, so they had an impact. Yes, I agree with you. It is the environment movement. There is middle class, white middle class in a sense, but I don't think they're all necessarily. You have I have seen them from different backgrounds.
Well.
You've got scientists, doctors. You've got young people. But everyone plays a different role. Some people are involved in youth strikes and protests. Others are involved in civil disobedience. Others are involved in media. So everyone's playing their little role.
Definitely. Assalamu alaikum. Bye Maqsood, how are you? Hope you're well. So just a couple of names. Bye Rashid, how are you? Hope you're well. Bye Ayub, hope you're well. Salam, how are you and your guest? Special salam. Nice to see you and to see you. I can listen to your program all day today because I am home. Jazakallah. Hope you enjoying your day off. Bye Safraz, how are you? Hope you're well. There's plenty of it of toilet roll now in Asda. Now there is, but there wasn't 18 months ago.
Wait till there's another shortage.
So no need to panic buy. No, absolutely. This is more about reminiscing and recollecting 18 months ago. Beautiful talk by the guest. While said very good points, you are making very enjoyable topic. Insulate Britain are one crazy group of people. They are interrupting other people's lives if they want to get their point across. blocking roads and motorways does not help, because it could be emergency vehicle trying to get to emergency. There could be anybody's family member on that. You can say that again. They are there for just short term, just to mess up other people's lives. So just a couple of sort of comments from some of our listeners. Please do continue to come in.
I appreciate that view. They do feel, but like the Smallheath Highway, for instance, you must have driven down the Smallheath Highway,
God. Yeah.
I've sat in traffic there with an ambulance behind with blue lights, not moving anywhere, but nobody will blame the highway agency for having the highway in that state for a year and a half.
Yep.
So I appreciate exactly why the sentiments of that.
No, definitely.
That way. Yeah.
And it's a question to yourself, but also I want the listeners to ponder, and if they can either dial in. The number is 012-1682-9735, or please just type your comments and I will read them out. We're having this talk about the environment, the climate change, and put me right if you think I'm wrong. I think majority of the working class Asian, Pakistani, Muslim as just ease immune to it. As soon as you mention environment, it's almost like they don't understand the term, or that's it, they think it's a boring topic, or it doesn't concern them, they're not involved, they just switch off. And I mentioned about the earlier analogy whereby you got a train going past, and everyone's they're stopping at every platform, people are getting on, whereas we're in our own little world, in our own little bubble, and it's not something that has really resonated. We hasn't captured our imagination, and the most thing that we think that we are playing is on a weekly bin collection, that we tend to segregate our different types of waste, and we're thinking that we played our part. So questions to both sides really. Is this a topic that has caught our imagination? Is this something that we relate to? What are we doing in order to make sure that we contribute and play our part? As Brother Kamran already mentioned as well, that there's a certain percentage, and significant percentage, I think it's about 20%, let's go for a conservative estimate, of the Amazon trees are being cut, or are responsible for being cut, in order to supply us with halal meat. And if that is the case, I wasn't aware of, and that is absolutely shocking. Am I going to do anything different as a result of hearing this stat? No. Are the listeners or other people going to do it? No. What will it take for us to, start making changes? How many of us know a Pakistani that is vegetarian or vegan? There's a few maybe here and there. I'm talking about a true vegetarian, not when they, when they feel like it. Not many. Again, these are important aspects that we have to implement. But please, you think and sort of come back to me in the meantime. Someone who's obviously well versed and has a bit more grasp. Where do we fit in this question and equation?
Not everything has to be an environmental reason. There are so many, like Sultan Bow Mosque, for instance. We have 22 mosques around the country. 20 of them now are all solar panelled.
Wow.
But it wasn't for environmental reasons, it was for economic reasons. Energy saving and energy bill and the feed-in tariffs. But it's a win-win. Same with, I find, when we're talking about behaviour change, when we talk about the environment, people switch off. But when you talk about things which is close to their heart, then they, like for instance, one of my biggest motivations is my son, who goes to school in Sparkhill. There was a recent study out by King's College that found that children who go to schools in these areas, their lives are cut short by 6 months because of air pollution. So for me now, I'm thinking, my son's life is being cut here. It's more personal to me. Same with if we're not going to change our diet for environment reasons, let's do it for health reasons. Now we've got high rates of diabetes, high cholesterol, heart disease because of the food we eat. And then it's not just the trees cutting. The meat industry and poultry industry, apart from the animal welfare, the amount of chemicals, hormones, antibiotics that they pump into it just to feed our And you don't have to be fully vegetarian. Just reduce your consumption in line with the sunnah. You know, if you want to be a good Muslim. Just, we don't have to eat 20 burgers or, all the time. Just reduce, fast more. It was a city council statistic. I heard that in Birmingham, it was 75% of all car journeys are less than 1 mile.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you must have heard something.
That's right.
We can walk that.
That's shocking, really. If you look at it, a mile you can walk. I would say 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not long. So 15, 20 minutes. And okay, I understand when it's raining or when it's too cold, you want to maybe take a car. But certainly from anywhere between March and October, November, those are, perfect months for you to be walking that short journey. And, and I've seen literally people going 200 meters to the local shop in their car. And sometimes, but you know what? Unless you point it out to them, they don't. That's their default mindset. They don't even realize what they're doing.
We have become, and again, I apologize to your audience, because I mean this very generically. We have become a greedy nation by default, and we don't mean to be greedy. Like now, anything we need, we just order it online.
Yeah.
To arrive the next day.
Shocking.
Even food now, with say, I won't mention any commercial, but the food delivery services.
Yeah.
Like before, at least you had to make an effort to walk to the takeaway.
Yeah. That's right.
You get it delivered to you.
Come on, I remember I was at a local desi takeaway just down the road in Pelham, and I was there eating, and the guy went and he goes and he started walking with some bag. Oh, I said, "Are you taking it home?" And he goes, "No." He goes, "There's a guy literally on the next road. It's going to take me 5 minutes, and he said that he's going to pay £5 delivery. So if you can deliver it, and rather than me driving, it's literally going to take me 3-4 minutes of walk." And I thought, £5, and I just thought, whoever they are, we're now of that mindset. We'd rather pay the money and have that thing on our doorstep than even thinking about, okay, let's just walk that 5 minutes and, but, and I thought, wow, how things have changed. And now, especially with these delivery services, click of a button, people will wait an hour. And a lot of the time, for me, I like my food fresh, hot. People will wait, sometimes it's semi-cold, whatever, and they would pay £4, £5, £6 delivery, and you know what?
And
it's a norm.
We also have structural issues or social justice issues that I don't. There's people who eat poor quality food because that's all they can afford.
Yeah.
Being vegetarian or being healthy, there used to be a time where being obese was the disease of a rich man.
Absolutely.
Now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
And because it's the cheaper option.
Yeah.
And this is why, where people like you, me, others, we need to push the authorities. So if we want the Ladypool roads, the Alum Rock roads to, like say for instance, if there's a healthy organic place on Ladypool Road or Alum Rock Road, it's not going to be very cheap for you to run as a business.
Absolutely.
And for me to buy.
Yeah.
But this is where the government has to give incentives.
Absolutely.
So if you have a healthy eating place, then a businessman will think, actually, I can turn this into a viable business. I'll get tax rebates or I'll get whatever. And then I can put cheaper prices. People will buy. And then economies of scale will mean more people get involved.
Yeah. And it's not a race to the bottom. We understand that, if you are going to do things right and give sustainable, resources into growing your product or whatever it may be, there will be a small premium.
Yeah.
But for it to be double the price and you expecting the normal, working class family or a single family, someone on benefits to go out and afford that for a family of 4 or 5, that's not realistic. So, again, it is the people that are on the lower socioeconomic ladder that tend to lose out. Just a bit more comments. How are you, Steve? I hope you're well. Insulate Britain are not doing the right thing the right way. By doing what they do puts people's back up. Go and do a march around Parliament, not the M25. You look at them and Amazon, they are changing all the fleet to electric. Also, I did my loft installation. Cheapest place was via Amazon. Thank you, Steve. After that, you can say, sorry, I read that one. Ayub, you are right. There we do switch off when it comes to the environmental issues. We need to change ourselves before change can take place. I've already cut down on meat. Oh, good on you. We always talk about other things before the, environmental issues. If we are going to change, we need to look at ourselves. We need to do our bit as a community. A person like yourself who has got the contacts in places of worship can get them to talk about it on Fridays. We need to have more discuss this. And actually, you know what? I will actually just share that with Brother Kamran. Mr. Ali, please do introduce me to the guest. I would like to have more discussion with this outstanding person. Absolutely, Brother Ayub. Ayub is a very like-minded brother of mine who is also a community activist. He's always there when there's something good and positive happening, volunteers his time. He also works in the fruit and vegetable aisle in one of the top 5 supermarkets over in Minworth as well. Very likable guy. And if you want to, I can give your number, Brother Ayub, to Brother Kamran, and you can have a chat. And the thing I was going to say was, with the Friday Jummah prayers, okay, it may not be for every mosque, but certainly, our English-speaking imams, or even some of those are more in tune about the current social justice issues in Urdu as well. They can talk about it on a Friday, but they'll need some guidance. They'll need some structure, and obviously, maybe some verses of the Quran to back up what they're saying as well. Is that something that Bahu Trust or yourselves are able to provide?
What we already have, if you go to our website, bahutrust.org/environment.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put it on the on the Facebook. There's a section about all the different things we're doing, but on the last tab is resources.
Yes.
And there's some wonderful resources on there that the Bahu Trust has created. So we have a Muslim's Guide to Climate Change.
Wow.
Very simplified, easy to understand. We've taken jargon out.
Yeah.
We've created a Muslim's Guide to Food and Climate Change.
Yeah.
A Muslim's Guide to Transport and Climate Change. A Muslim Guide to Energy. And because what we're trying to tell people, that all these things, it's not just an environmental hippie thing.
Yeah.
It's an act of ibadah.
Yeah.
It's part of your worship. You need to see it. That everything you do,
Yes.
ultimately, it's to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's to, from your faith inspired.
Yeah.
Because that's why a lot of us, when we go out there and we do work in the community, it's because we motivate. We have a motivation, and then we have various different activities that we're doing in the masjid, but we don't necessarily tell people we're doing it for environmental reasons. There's more what we call nudge theory.
Sure.
Just slowly introduce it and let it become subconscious in people's mind. So suddenly, like for instance, we go to do wudu, but the amount of water we waste. We always talk about bid'ah this, bid'ah that. I think one of the biggest bid'ah in the mosque is the tap.
Yeah.
You're
right. You're right. Absolutely, you're right.
Train people. Also, even we bring our car to the masjid. Then we do wudu. Why do we do wudu? To clean ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, we've just polluted everybody's lungs. So there's double standards. And we need to start thinking differently.
And you know what? If you look at the sunnah, you can actually do a proper wuzu by having even a small container as that.
Yeah.
But what we'll do is we'll use 100 times the amount we should be doing.
Yeah.
Because we are wasting, and our mind is that we want that constant water, and how many times have we let it open first, and we won't touch it until the hot water comes out, and that may take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but that's the mindset that we are. No, let it run until the hot water comes out, then I'll do my wudu, and then again you just sort of do everything as well. So I think there's a lot of education, there's a lot of awareness that we have to get that through, but I think that approach is very sensible, where we get the message across, but the narrative and the spin that you put on there has to be cleverly done in order for it not to be seen as preaching, in order for us not to be seen as though we've got something else going on, and slowly, and especially I think maybe women and our young generation may be the key to unlock that particular, because I know when the children tell their parents to do something. Okay, it may take a couple of time, but eventually it will sink in. So I don't know whether that's an avenue for us to possibly pursue.
Well, I agree with you 100%. If you want anything done, ask the women.
Yeah.
They're the grafters. We do all the talking, they do all the walking.
I agree.
A lot of the environmental work we've done, the Bahu Trust, women have led. And children, like in our madrasa now, we have a module, Islam and Environment, for the children. They're setting up their own youth council, green council. And having young people are not our future, they are here now. You have to have them involved. They need to be at the forefront, and we need to listen to them. Empower them, give them the platform, not hug the platform for the elder generation. Young people need to be leading. If they don't lead on it now, they'll be disengaged.
Brother Kamran, I was supposed to have 1 or 2 breaks, but we literally got 2 minutes left. We've got 2 minutes left now, so time has really, flown by as always, as I'd imagined. But I'm just going to sort of labour on the point about young people as well. We talked about the Youth Council, and we know that everyone who wants to talk about an issue, there's 2 issues that are really dominating young people's minds and their time at the moment. One is knife crime, and the other one I would say is obviously women's issue, but the other one is the environment and climate change. And I think this is what we need to really capture and really be empowering them to have the conversation in the right places, because I know not only will they go and get other people to sign up to that agenda, but they also will live by it, because they haven't been used to, or been sort of, I was going to say use the word corrupted, but I think that may be a bit too harsh, but certainly used to what we are. Especially now, some of the other people who aren't being made aware, we got, again, let's not always put it on young people. We still have a very active role to play, and I hope we've sort of are doing that. Just try and bring everything together now, Brother Kamran. So I'm going to just sort of ask you to sort of, give your sort of concluding remarks, really, in terms of, the key things, or the key achievements from COP26. And also from your point as well, from an Islamic perspective. I know our blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were very good at telling the Sahaba and the wider community, don't unnecessarily cut down trees or vegetation, don't kill an animal unless you've got a reason to, or you're going to cook, or you need their skin for keeping you warm. There was a real thought process. There was a real understanding of the value of these items that are playing in the wider ecosystem. I don't know whether we've now been sort of slightly detached, or we've sort of gone away from that, but I think we need to reset. We need to sort of re-evaluate where we are and get back to that theme. But the last few minutes, over to you, Brother Kamran.
Okay, I'll end on a spiritual message.
Please, by all means.
Because my motivation for being involved in environmental justice is my spirituality in action. And to address people who say, oh, these are the signs of Qiyamah, Day of Judgment is coming, nothing we can do, or the earth is like this, it goes through this process, or climate change science is going to happen, or politics, they don't listen to us, what can we do? It's only there's nothing we can do. Ultimately, we're accountable to a higher power, and we may not achieve anything in our life, but we will be asked one day when we're risen in that court, what did you do? And we need to be able to say, Ya Allah, we fought for your cause. We tried to make a difference, because this planet is an amana.
Yeah.
It's not ours, it doesn't belong to us. It's a creation. So the concept of Tawheed and Taqwa is very important, that there needs to be God consciousness or even mindfulness. If not of God, if there's any non-God believing, but then of other people, there's an interconnectedness between us all. And being aware of that, it's so important. And ultimately, we can't love the Creator if we don't love His creation. So everyone do your bit, don't remain passive. Just keep fighting the good for a cause, keep struggling, and bit by bit, everybody, will start. As long as you're leading by example, others will join you. People don't like talkers.
I want you to just repeat that, please. The bit about you said, can't love His.
Yeah, this is how I see my concept of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. That everything, when we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that Allah is the master of all the universe, that you can't love the Creator if you don't love His creation. It's all one. It's all His.
What a way to finish, and what a point to finish on. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope it was a different perspective on what we normally bring, but anything that will, enhance our community well-being, the wider ecosystem, and also a bit about interconnectedness as well. What I do has at some point impact on, yourselves through, different mechanisms. So please, if anything, from today's program and Brother Kamran's input, just think about, if nothing else, just think about what's going on, the wider picture, and the role we're playing as well. So really great show, something different as well. So let me just say, yeah. So Brother Ayub, I will give your number to Brother Kamran so you two can stay in touch. Until next week, please continue to look after yourselves. Real pleasure for Kamran to come part of the Bahu Trust to talk about COP and also the role that they're playing as well, and what we can do on an individual, collective basis as well in order to impact climate change in a positive way. With this new variant that's come through from South Africa, just another cautionary tale, please, let's take back, the messaging that we had at the height of COVID, where we were taking a safe distance, minimum of a meter, if not more, 2 meters. Make sure we are wearing a face mask when we are out in public. Continue to sanitize, and if someone is shielding or vulnerable, then please, refrain from seeing them or openly mixing. And for those of you that are over 40 or are eligible for the booster vaccine, please get yourself that booster vaccine. And if you are a young person or you still haven't had, for whatever reason, hadn't have a vaccine, now is another reason for you to go and get that done as well from the fantastic, fabulous NHS. Until next week, please look after yourselves and each other. God bless.
You make